Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is sneeze. Let's take a look at the definition of this verb. Sneeze as a verb means to suddenly and involuntarily expel or push air from your nose and sometimes your mouth as well. So I'm going to point out in this definition, because it has some challenging words in it, um, most sneezes are not planned, right? You can't control it necessarily. Sometimes you can try and make it quieter or maybe not as big, right? You might get a sensation, but it's not a planned thing or something you do intentionally, right? And this feeling usually comes on pretty quickly. And again, you can feel air pushing from your nose and your mouth. Sneeze is a regular verb. To make the progressive tense, you're going to drop the E and then add ing to form sneezing. The past tense and participle forms of this verb are made by adding the letter D. We never want to have two E's as we form the past tense or participle forms. Our base verb, sneeze, zzz, zzz, ends in a voiced Z sound. So our past tense ending is going to make a D sound. Sneezed, sneezed. Okay. Now I have one phrasal verb to point out, and that's the phrasal verb to sneeze at. And it has a completely different meaning. It has really nothing to do with that achoo sort of sensation. But when this phrasal verb is used, what we're referring to is someone as treating something that is unimportant, or they might be rejecting something like an idea without giving it true and fair consideration. So let's take a look at an example of this, and then I'll talk about it a little more. Okay. My example sentence, the first one I have there, is saving $20 a week isn't to be sneezed at. Okay. So we shouldn't treat that as unimportant. We shouldn't reject it if there's a way we could save $20 a week, right? With the idea of like that adds up. Okay. Now, I'm going to point out that in my example sentence here, sneeze at is not really being used as the verb. The verb in the sentence is. Okay, and this is really sort of the common way that you see this phrasal verb being used. And I'm going to point out you also see it with the negative, right? So it isn't to be sneezed at. It isn't to be treated as unimportant. A second way you hear this phrasal verb sort of used is in my second example. It's going to have the exact same meaning, just said a little bit differently. Saving $20 a week is nothing to sneeze at. So again, here the verb is, to sneeze at is our infinitive. Okay, and we've got the negative there again with nothing. Okay, so you might hear or see this phrasal verb used in this way, but again, it's rarely is it used like as a true verb in a sentence, and it is most commonly going to be used in a negative way. So isn't to be or is nothing to sneeze at is how you'll likely hear it used. Now, let's practice using our verb of the day in a couple different verb tenses. Today, we'll practice the past progressive and the simple present. We use the past progressive to talk about an action that was ongoing at a certain point in the past, right? You might see the past progressive used in connection to the simple past. So many times we use a past progressive action to show something was ongoing, and then something interrupts it. And that interrupting action is what's used in the simple past tense. Now, it's not always used that way. We can use it to imply that something was going and on and on and on in the past. To make the past progressive, we need two parts. We need a past form of be, so that's going to be was or were, depending on what our subject is. So if my subject's I, He, she, or it, we'll use was. If the subjects are you, we, or they, we'll use were. And then we're going to use that ing form of the verb. Here's an example sentence. The patients were sneezing nonstop for hours, right? So that's showing that ongoing or continuing action. If you want to make a negative past progressive sentence, then what you want to do is, again, use was or were, whichever form matches your subject. So subject, was or were, then we're going to use not, and then that ing form of the verb. You might hear some people use the contractions wasn't or weren't. That's fine if it's comfortable for you. An example of this, I wasn't sneezing when they took the photo. So here an action was not ongoing when it was interrupted by the past tense took the photo. Right? So snapped a picture. If you want to ask a yes or no question in the past progressive, we will start with our past form of be, whatever form matches the subject, subject comes next, and then we have that ing form of the verb. Was the cat sneezing, right? So it's not just humans that have this action. Many people with pets can tell you they've heard or seen their cats and dogs sneeze as well. Now let's take a look at simple present. We use this verb tense to talk about habits and routines, and I think you're going to see that in my example quite a bit here. So my first example sentence here, I sneeze every morning. And this is just about true. This is an action that repeats again and again. If you want to make a negative simple present sentence, again, start with our subject, then we're going to use do or does, then not, then our base verb. An example of this, we don't sneeze on other people, right? So here someone might be explaining to a child what the custom or kind of appropriate behavior is in a certain situation, right? You want to cover your mouth or sneeze into your elbow. All good habits as we enter our cold and flu season. Finally, if you want to ask a yes or no question in the simple present, start with do or does. Then you're going to have your subject, then the base verb. Here's another example. Do you sneeze during allergy season? So this can be different in different parts of the country or different parts of the world, but there are certain times of year where trees are budding and many people will have reactions to that. Now, let's spend just a couple minutes looking at some words that are related to our verb sneeze. And the first word we're going to look at has the exact same spelling and the exact same pronunciation. It's just the noun form of the word sneeze. When sneeze is used as a noun, it is referring to the act or the sound of pushing that air from your nose. So, an example, maybe you ask someone, what caused that sneeze, right? So, you're kind of asking, why are you having this reaction? Another related word you might hear is the adjective sneezy, right? So, this means given to or causing sneezing. An example of this might be spring is a sneezy season in the Midwest, right? So this is a time, again, where the trees are budding and it causes many people to sneeze. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a great day.